All right, guys. Well, I'll be honest. This is literally like me just sitting in the room with family talking. I'm so grateful to be sitting here. We talked about the case, but it was hard. It was hard for me to talk about the case watching you go through it because of everything, But like everybody, I just want to say this before we get going, everybody was so loving and supportive of you. Like people just wanted nothing but the best for you and your family, and people really see your heart. So I just wanted to start there because I think people really do see the fact that you love Jesus, you love your family, and you're not hateful. And I just wanted to give you that prop immediately because that was the first thing that came to my mind when we decided to sit down, is to tell you that. So,
thanks, dude.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
For those of you guys who don't know, I watched Colby grow up. Innumerable amounts of pool basketball, right. Real basketball. I don't think he's ever beat me still, in case anybody's wondering.
We've never had one time. I've never won one time. Okay. We'll pretend. We'll say
we can check. There's Zach's still out there from what we can find out from him. But we just years of
literally
being together.
Yeah.
And then truthfully, when you talk about meeting and talking about it this way, like a really hard separation, probably a lot of confusion for both of us.
Yeah.
Not knowing if we can talk to each other, or not knowing who supports what as you're going through.
Right.
And that's probably the first thing that comes to mind for me, like that people don't realize when you don't go through trauma is you don't know who to trust.
No, exactly.
And everybody feels like they have some reason why they're talking to you. You know, like a reporter feels like there's something that they want. There's something they need, that's their job. So they kind of have to, like, there's an ulterior motive. Inside of your own family, the trust gets just destroyed because everybody doesn't know who to talk to. Nobody knows who to trust, right? There's so it's so complicated when you're going through that. So for people who don't know that, it's such an accomplishment to be able to work through for you, Colby, and this is my compliment back to you, like to be able to work through what you've worked through, figuring out how do I move forward with all the things that my mom's done. How do I have this relationship in my life? If I have it, what does it look like? What do I do? How do I have these other relationships with all the other people that were my family?
Right.
And it takes whatever it takes. So it's taken you the time that it's taken, and you've been open and vulnerable, and people, unfortunately for you, everybody gets to see your whole life. Like, like as you try to grow up and become a man, as you go through some of that stuff, like we all get to see it. And, it's heartwarming just as much as you say, hey, everybody loves me. I think everybody loves you because it's heartwarming to see you fight through all of that.
Yeah.
Become a man who I admire, who's out here doing an honest thing to earn for his family, to figure out a way, and not just to earn for your family, but something I talk a lot about in my businesses and in my personal life and with my kids is like the idea that money follows value, right?
Right.
Money is just a measurement that oftentimes helps us know if we're creating value. That's not the only measurement that's out there that tells if you're creating value, right? But it's a good measurement for everybody. Has to earn money at some point to provide. And for me, I think it's beautiful to see that you've chosen a way to get back where you're trying to create something. And what got me to come sit down with you today and do it this way instead of just what we do, which is talk on the phone or talk offline, because I'm not, I'm not a person who wants to be online a lot. Was your mission, right? When you shared your mission, I don't know if everybody on your pod, I don't watch any of this stuff either, just so people know. So
of course not.
I don't know. I don't know if people know your mission, but your mission means a lot to me. When you shared with me the idea that you want to give survivors a place to share how to heal. You don't want to focus on the crime and the criminal. You want to focus on the people who are the victims and surviving and trying to get through it. That spoke to me and made me think, man, like, how cool is it to see the way you've come in to this terrible situation, gone through. No one knows how you felt. None of us can. But you went through all that. kept a savior in your life. You found a way to connect with him, and now you're out trying to do good back in the world and like help and make it a better place. And that's what got me to want to sit down and want to let everybody else see our connection and see just kind of how we view life and have a conversation.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, you touched on a lot of good stuff. I think number one, just with media, just to touch on that too, like I've tried to tell people that there's a full circle thing. Like if we focus and talk about what happened, that's just the facts. Like talk about the things with Lori, but they're not the focus, right? We're not going to just brush over you to talk about Lori. We're not going to brush over Tyler and JJ and Charles and Tammy just to talk about Lori and Chad, right? So it's like giving people a safe place with media because, like you said, ulterior motive of what does this person want? And I was telling, when I was like explaining it, I wanted people to know there's not a motive like I want to exploit you so I can get what I want. I want to have a real conversation. Whoever wants to watch it or follow it can understand that that's what it is to sit down. Another interesting thing you said is that you watched me grow up from like 12 years old, but I watched you grow up. You know what I mean? And like, I think that I don't think people realize that like I didn't have a lot of role models and people that I watched. The thing that's really interesting is that I noticed because once I was like more around 13, I felt like I was the man, right? Like
as every 13,
I had my growth spurt. I was like, oh, I'm that guy.
I got a couple of those in my house, 15 and 16 right now. So
you turn that corner for some reason as a teenager. You're just old enough to like really recognize things. And so I watched you build your family. I watched you go from having one kid to two. Like I watched you build your life, and I watched you become more invested into your business, and I watched you form and shape as a person. And I think that that's what people again don't understand is like it's a really deep connection, but like I watched on the flip side, and like you were an example in my life 100% because I didn't have anybody else closer. Like Charles was already an established man when I met him. There was it's not that he didn't grow as a person. It's just that there was nothing like that. Like he wasn't a young man who just got married, who's building a life, but you were. And so I've taken a lot of what I've seen, and I've seen you become. I think the reason I believe you're successful is because of what you said, exactly what we talked about, is that it follows somebody who has a vision. It's not about, let me get this, let me just do whatever I can, let me steamroll people to do this. It's more like, I believe in something, I'm going to do it the right way. And that's kind of in life. It's not just like a whatever thing. Like it's a life lesson.
I think the principle you're talking about is there's this belief sometimes, and it's prevalent in our society, that like instant gratification, money's just gonna like that you should just be able to get whatever you want as quick as you want. And,
right.
And there's a lack of fulfillment. People don't realize is people who win the lottery, for instance, like there's a lack of fulfillment.
Yeah.
It's still empty. Like that money's, if you didn't earn that money and put a lot of, if you didn't grind day in, day out,
right.
and go build something, it doesn't feel the exact same way. I'm not saying that anybody would turn down having money
right.
because it gives you opportunity, right? And,
right.
and there's things that come with it, but it doesn't feel the same as a person who spends large amounts of time
right.
laboring to create something. And one of the things I think that, I think when I think back on all of like what happened to our family, one of the things that I see that was an early warning sign is just that, like there was like a pattern that some people were building in their lives that opened the door to worse decisions of instant gratification, getting something for nothing, right? Like that idea that I can just get, I want it now. And I think that goes against one of the laws of God, which is that, we're here to grow and to become better, but part of that is you have to grow. You actually,
right.
He doesn't
to do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have a savior, he saves us, but also we have a need to do the work. Like we're here to grow, to become better people, to go out and make the world a better place. And the work is important. Like that's a big part of it. And for me, I think you nailed on that. Like when you start getting away from that and you start trying to find ways to beat the system or not that there's anything wrong with being smart and working harder to create more value, but if you're trying to just only beat the system, I think that's where you can start getting pulled into things that aren't good.
Yeah. I think one thing that really gets me is you and I both know that I did not have somebody to really lead or guide me at all.
Yeah.
I did not have, I hate to say it because it's never to put anybody down, but it's not like I was taught a lot of life lessons as a kid. So the things I've learned.
Your mom didn't keep you in school. Like,
No,
people don't know that.
No.
That was a concern
Yeah.
I had, was there's never like a discipline. I'm not your dad, so it's not my job.
But you loved me.
I love you, and
You cared.
And it was a concern I would have, right? Like,
Right.
I was just like, man, nobody's making him stick it out in high school.
Right.
Nobody's making him stick it. Like, that's not a good pattern to get as a teenager.
Right.
When you think you're the man at 13, part of a parent's job is we gotta help you recognize when you're not the man while we still have the ability. Before you turn 18 and we don't get to say anymore, and you're an adult, like, we gotta help you. We gotta help you put parameters up to help you get stronger, so you're ready for
100%.
And yeah, you're right. Like, a big concern I had for you was like, dude, Charles loved you, but he was focused on these other things. He was a good example. He was a great example, but there wasn't that
one-on-one.
He wasn't your paternal dad, right? Like, and or your, whatever the right word is, but he wasn't your biological dad is the word I'm looking for. And so there was maybe not quite the connection that maybe you had hoped for on that. And because of that, you did, and there was just nobody there to, like, making you have that discipline.
Right.
And you know, I always cared about that, because my concern was for you when you were 22, 25.
Right.
And I think that lack of that part of your life made your 20s hard for you.
It did.
Besides this, right? Like, that, and it would make anyone's 20s hard, because if you didn't learn at 15 how to have the discipline to do the painful stuff, you know, something I say to my kids is, everybody has to go through pain. You either go through it now or you go through it later, but everybody goes through the pain.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Like, we all have to. There's no, unless you're the one in a billion, there's no way around it. And even then, you're likely to find out that the pain comes from a different source anyways.
Right.
You know, it's always there. So how we handle that pain is the key. And if you tackle life with the idea, like I see you doing now, where it's like, I'm going to go through the pain, I'm going to handle it, and I'm going to create a good pattern for my family.
Yeah.
That's the most we can hope for in a society, right? Is to help everybody figure that out for themselves and find their way through it.
Yeah. And it was, like you said, it was painful to learn. Like you said, you know, I got my GED, and then I was like, oh, I'm just going to go in the military.
Yeah.
Like, that was my first thought. And then, or I want to serve God, so I want to go on a mission.
Yeah.
But then I let anxiety and then the unpreparedness to stick anything through.
Missions are hard.
They are. And
I
was out there for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Frick this. I'm out.
People don't understand.
No.
When you go on a mission in the LDS church,
yeah,
you're paying your own way, or your parents are paying. So you don't, there's no pay. It's the opposite. Right. You're actually paying money to show up.
Right.
And you have this, you leave with this vision, like, I want to go do good. And you do. But when you get out there and it's like, you realize that on a day-to-day,
it's hard.
The doing good is just a grind.
It's a hard,
like you point out, that's your first time. You never had anybody make you do something hard and stick it out and go through that. So yeah, like, I'm sure the anxiety was high, because you were like, oh, this is way harder than I thought.
Yeah.
I'm not you, so I can't even work. But you know, and when I went on my mission, it was like, it's hard.
It's hard. Dude.
It's hard. Yeah. I went 6 weeks, taught one person about Christ, and I mostly just worked my freaking butt off, dude. But it only increased that core for me of knowing who I was. Like, I knew what I was out there for.
Yeah.
My heart had been changed. I felt the Savior in my life, and I knew that I could just give him 2 years, whatever. If I helped no one, I gave it to him anyway. So I could go to sleep at night knowing that that's what I used it for. Right. And you know, some nights that's what you get out of it. Like,
that's it.
You put everything you had in
for you.
Yeah. And what you get out of it is knowing that you gave it to you. You sacrificed for the Lord, and you know that he knows your heart, and it doesn't matter if anybody else knows, because you gave it to him. Yeah. Luckily for me, I got lots of other amazing experiences out of those 2 years. But going back to you, like, like you for sure, Colby, like I loved you. So I just, you know, those were things I was worried for you about.
You
just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew I've always known this is in you. Yeah. Like, I've always known that, but you needed help to figure it out, how to get it out of you.
Right. Exactly. And I didn't have, that's what I don't think people know. And it's, again, I've tried to talk about it on the channel. I've been honest about it, about being the son of someone who never, like, look, we had a hard life. A lot of our hard life was fabricated by Lori. She created the chaos.
Yeah.
And then she acted like she can't believe it's happening. So I had to deal with her. A lot of my life was catering to her emotions. I learned how to be nothing but a pleaser. Just make everything perfect all the time. Try to make friends with everybody and never cause any issues. And just be the suck. No matter how much it sucks, suck it up. So then I had that responsibility. And then I'm growing up. I have nothing but what I want, right? I'll be honest. Like, I knew I was more in a spoiled life. I wasn't. I'm just honest.
Yeah, we all do it, right?
That's
like,
what I'm saying. Like,
you,
I even think that
you didn't know what stuff costed because you didn't have to pay for it.
No, I didn't
right?
think about it. No,
It's just,
it wasn't a thought.
You wanted something,
right?
Send me a Venmo.
Right.
Send me some money. I get money. I want to do this.
That was the thing. Like, that's, you know, and I think any teenagers like that. But like, that was like the only thing. I think this is a deeper point that I've never really talked about. But like, that was the only amount of, like, I care about you, here it is thing that I had. So it wasn't just a monetary, like, oh, I want everything. It was like, oh, she cares at least enough to get the things that I like.
Yeah,
that's it.
I think you're trying to figure out what love is.
Yeah,
and
I didn't have that.
And I grew up in a home with two parents who loved me, man. And I know they love me. I watched them sacrificed. I watched them.
Yeah.
For me and I come from a big family, and I never doubted. I never misunderstood. I saw so many ways that love was shared. And so, like, I felt secure and I felt safe, and it was easy for me to feel loved. I never doubted whether I had value or worth.
Wow.
And something that I worried about for you was because there's only a few ways you were getting. Look, I wasn't there. I didn't know if your mom was doing that at night. I didn't, like, there's some things you just don't know. Right? I lived with you, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, some of the details. But what I do know is exactly what you're expressing is you probably put a lot of the idea of love being passed on through, my mom gives me money when I need it. Like, this is what love feels like.
Right.
And I don't from the actions that we see, I don't have the right to judge anyone. That's our Savior's job in my mind. But we do have society that needs to put rules up to protect.
Right.
And what I see is, when I look at that, I think, man, there had to have been some stuff for her that she didn't know how to give you that love or the correct ways. Because, but aside from all that, that's a conversation we talk about. The thing I do think, Colby, is look at you now. You're working. To me, one of the other really cool parts about this for me is watching some of us who've gone through some really hard stuff, finding ways to heal and finding ways. And, you know, like, in healing's a process. Like, it's not like you just wake up one day and you're like, oh, I'm all better. Yeah. That never happens. And some days you do feel that way. You wake up and you feel good. Like, you wake up that morning, you feel good. You're like, yeah, I feel good. But then 3 months later,
you're back.
Somebody something comes along and rips that scab and makes it bleed all over again. Yeah. Like, that's real. Like, that's the real part of, like, we'll never, you know, when people ask, like, it's like, dude, like, when you lose someone you really love, you're never going to stop missing them till you get to see them again. Right. Till we get to the other side of this life and we pass on and we finally see that, you're going to miss them because you love them. And the lack of them being present hurts in different moments. You never know when those moments are coming. Right. I have a little playlist on Spotify that I labeled it memories, because I don't ever want my kids to, like, I try not to make anything too sad. Right. I try to keep a really well balanced life. Right. But it's just all my songs that
remind you.
You know, when I'm feeling sad, I try to embrace it for a little bit instead of trying to avoid it. I like to. It's okay to feel like you miss them. Like, and so, you know, I just have some songs that remind me that that's okay, and that you can love them and you can miss them for a little bit, and you can miss all those things that we had. Like, I can miss how safe we felt. Yeah. Because we felt safe for a long time.
Like, dude, that's why it's so hard. Yeah. We felt like a normal, everybody together family. Like, what's heartbreaking for me, and like you just said, for the kids, like, it's so hard to me, because I remember right before Riley was born, I just thought to myself, our family's so huge, and I wish I had that. Like, I wish I would have had my dad's family, and like a huge, I'm like, but guess what? I get to give that to my kids. I have all these cousins and everybody, you know what I mean? I'm so excited. And there's like a real tangible thought that I had, like how grateful I was that we we're gonna have that. And then everything started, I mean, literally in January.
I know.
And Riley was born on February 5th.
I remember.
And that was it. I mean, it's so hard to put into time, like context for people. The timeline of having your own child who has so many issues. She had so many issues till she was like 9 months, where she like was inconsolable. So I'm living every day with a screaming, crying baby almost the entire day until she's so exhausted. Like, we took her to the doctor, did everything we could on top of everything else, building.
And you're a young man who hasn't built some life skills to where you feel great about being able to provide.
No, I wasn't there.
You've never seen a perfect marriage.
Right.
So you're trying to figure it out. Like,
it was hard, dude.
But like, you're going through that. You're going through this child that you love her, but you don't know what, you don't need, first time parent, you don't know what to do. And that would be a lot of people's Everest, to climb through that and stay a good person and get through it would be, but unfortunately for you, that wasn't like part of the trials that you were going to face. Meanwhile, this stable, safe place we had, it's changed. It just became like, I mean, everybody knows that part of the story, so we don't need to talk about that here, but it put a divider even between you and I. Like, we didn't know how to handle each other, and we're busy getting fed misinformation from multiple sources. And so trust is, so what all of us should do. We try to protect our own personal little families.
Yes.
Because that, as a father, that's our number one responsibility is to our wife and our kids. Right.
Exactly.
Like, that's the way I viewed it. And I said, okay, like, if there's problems with my own parents, then if it's between them and my wife, my job, God told me my job is with my wife. Protect my kids, protect 100%. My wife, and we'll work through it eventually, right? Like, we'll figure it out. And so all of that came in, and you lost all of that safety. Yeah. And then, as if that wasn't enough, then you lost Charles. Yep. In the worst way. And I can't imagine how confusing that was for you. Yeah. I mean, it was confusing for me. Yeah. But I had gone through my own little bizarre
you were way more, and I don't want to use the word aware, but like, Charles came to you.
I met with him a bunch of times.
That's what I'm saying. I told this blunt story too. It was exactly like you said, when they started having issues, and my mom was like, Charles has been cheating on me for years. He's a serial cheater. Every time he goes out of town, he's cheating on me. And I'm pissed. I'm like, dude, you broke our whole family up so you could get some, because you wanted to hook up with, like, that was my mentality. Yeah, like, and then on top of that, they're coming back and forth. And I'm like, look, I just had a baby. Go deal with you're both adults. Keep me out of it. I want nothing to do with your stuff.
You're like, you guys have no idea how much I'm going through. Right?
That's what I'm saying. I'm 22 years old.
Poor Kelsey. She's,
oh, dude, it's so hard.
She's over here loving you, trying to figure out. I mean, she's also young and trying to figure out, like, and all of this is there.
That's
for you guys, and you're trying to, and you're just trying to be good.
It was a mountain, dude, and that's the thing that's so hard. It was like that from that point. All that growth that you said I didn't have as a child was like, there's a nerdy reference I'm going to give you, but there's in Dragon Ball Z, there's a freaking time chamber they go in that gives them like years of experience of stuff. It felt like that. Like, it was like stepping into a realm, and everything you've ever missed is happening at once. Everything you've ever had to do, there was no way around what happened to Charles. Then Tylee and JJ are gone, and a month later, and then they disappear. Then Lori's gone. Then they find the kids. Like, that's how it was for me. And what people don't understand is what we talked about, the day to day. Yeah. We had to live every single day.
You still had to figure out how to provide for your family.
Yeah. And I'll touch on that real quick, because you and I have had this discussion. I had built what I thought was a career in the gym. Yeah. And so when I became a manager at Anytime Fitness, I thought I freaking made it. I was making $25,000 a year. And people are always like, oh, you got all these Venmos from your mom and Tylee. Tylee only Venmoed me what I asked my mom for. That was it. Yeah. It's that simple. And people are like, you asked your sister for money.
I was 22 and I was trying to figure out how to provide.
I had a baby, and guess what? I wasn't able to I still had a full-time job. I worked 10 to 7 every day. Yeah. On Saturdays, I was coming in and I wasn't making enough. And that was on me. I was young and arrogant, thinking, oh, well, I'm finally a manager. I can't leave. Like, I'm only going to go up from this part.
But guess what? That's normal, man.
Yeah, exactly.
When people are inside of our families, part of the process of growing up is like helping a little bit here and there when kids aren't figuring it out quite yet. Right. And it's hard as a parent to know when the time is to say no and make them have to grow through it. Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, and something I knew is you didn't have anybody who would ever do that. No. Charles had that big heart, and there
Mhm.
was no stopping that guy from just
Helping everybody.
I may have a similar problem sometimes, right? It's like I'll always, I probably too often say yes instead of letting someone grow.
Right.
And so yeah, like that's not a crime. That's the opposite of it. That's
Well,
just
yeah.
that's called like that was the one place you knew that you felt love.
I
Totally.
I
That was the
trusted
one,
my mom to help.
and it's what you thought
Yeah.
that's what
and
you thought love was. You thought love
Exactly.
was her helping with that.
Yeah.
That was one of the only things.
That's the only thing I ever asked her for. I asked her for material things.
Yeah.
And I asked her when I got older, I stopped asking for any of that stuff once we moved out and all that stuff, like when I went to college, all that stuff. And I asked for help financially with my family. And I would just ask for those little bits. And like that was at that point where you're living on, you have $100 in your account by the time you get it done with all your stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, like, can you please just send me, $100 so I can make it through the week and I get paid on this day?
We got to buy food, and I have a baby, and like my basic necessities cost me $200
more than I had. Right. And so now I have nothing left. So I think that is, it's hard because it wasn't just like on that day to day, it wasn't just losing whatever relationship I had with Lori, right? It was recognizing that I didn't have any kind of relationship with her. I never had a mother that I went to and knew loved me. When I told my mom something really hard, she freaked out, dude. Like if I told her, hey, me and my, your drama at 16, me and my girlfriend are having a hard time. Blah, blah, blah. She'd freak out. So then guess what? I'm consoling her. That's how it was. So I had to realize my whole life was catering to walk on eggshells around her emotions. And I never got what I needed. I was never validated. I was never able to deal with my own emotions as a child. So then growing into a man, you have to deal with everything at once. And then our whole family gets thrown into the public, add that flavor.
Most people, when they make mistakes, don't have to have the embarrassment of having the whole world know about it all the time. Right? Like that's one of the hard parts about the internet and the popularity of the story is like any mistake anybody in this little group makes, everybody knows about it because it's news, and people because it gets views and people are interested in it.
Right.
It's not, I don't blame any of the people who cover it. It's their job. They're just doing their job.
Yeah, exactly.
And it might even hurt them a little bit because they might really like me and you. They get to know us or anybody else that's involved in this case. But that's the thing people don't know is like, and that's not what you want your kids to have to, see of their family.
Right.
That's not what that's the last thing in the world I wanted was for you're trying to figure that stuff out and you have to do it and everybody's watching,
Watch. Exactly.
And that's people don't know how tough that is.
It's hard.
Yeah. And
it's not like you're doing something like, it's not like you earned notoriety through some skill you have. Like you're just on trial. Like until everything happened, people were still commenting about everything to do with me. I'm sure
they want to have
an opinion. Suspect. Yeah.
They want to have an opinion, and that's fine. Like this is entertainment for them.
Exactly.
And when a lot of people watch this, and that's something they don't realize is like, this is your whole life.
Right.
And this is something that like, look, we're all into different things. Some people are into sports, some people are into true crime. And I understand that, but what they don't understand is that like, this is your whole life. And while it's okay for them to have like theories and stuff, like sometimes that really hurts you. Yeah. And even though you don't want it to, it does, because these are, while you're going through all this pain of trying to figure out, you're going through all this growth, like trying to figure out who you are. How do I be a good dad? And now you're having to deal with like your whole family's torn apart, your whole life, that what you thought you knew, you don't know. And there's while you're dealing with all that, every day you wake up and it's like, oh yeah, I have to provide for my kids because if I don't, no one else will.
I got to show up.
Yeah.
Every day.
I have to go show up at something. Right. And I'm not even in a place where I've gone to school for a bunch of years and have some specialty that pays me a certain amount so that like I literally can just kind of be a robot. You didn't have that.
There's no skill set there.
Yeah. You hadn't built any skill sets. You didn't have anything that paid you enough to live. It was literally like, I have to show up and not probably make even enough to live, but I got to try because
can't not do it.
Yeah. And so you're dealing with all that stuff and that, and that's something people don't realize about. You don't think about when you're only getting the entertainment part and you're getting shocked by the crime.
Yeah.
Is like these victims, man, it is the worst. Like they have to deal with all of that baggage.
Right.
and then they have to go show up to work every day.
Yeah.
And they have to do the same thing you have to do in their life. And
only they're drowning.
Yeah. Only inside, they don't know what to do. They don't even, there's there's people who have compassion and empathy, and they care, and they try to build some programs, but there's no real program for that. Like there's no. The only source I've found is you have to go and work through it with God. And that takes time. It isn't like I prayed once.
Not a one prayer. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
And I saw better. That, like he doesn't, like I love in scripture, he talks about like yoking, right? Like the idea of, like, think about that. Like it's an oxen. Oxen's whole life is pulling
a load.
And what he tells you is not that he's not going to just take it away.
Right.
He says, put my yoke upon you, come pull with me, and I'll make this unbearable weight bearable. Right. Right. I will pull with you. Yeah. I will help you move through. And that's the best explanation I could give somebody is, little graces pop into your life. Yes. And help
little breaks,
little things that are his way to just tell you, on things that only you would know. Yeah. Things that only you would know. Yeah. To let you know that he's real, that God's real, that he loves you. And when you start praying and you start looking, you'll see him. Yeah. And that can give you that little grace to keep going forward, because it is, you're an ox and you're pulling something, and you're not going to stop pulling it. Yeah. You don't have a choice. You do, you could just stop, but then you're just going to be miserable and stuck. Yeah. And you know, what's worse than feeling pain is being miserably stuck. Yeah. Feeling pain. Yeah. Because it doesn't go away. It's not like it just stops. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it works, right? That's how you get through it, is you work at it and you trust him to come use that yoke, and you go through that process and you give it to him. You give some of that pain to him so that he can help you move through it. Yeah. And that's honestly a great example, because there's so many things I could tell you about when he did that for me. Like when I just was like crying in a closet so my kid didn't see me bawling my eyes out, like those moments. And it always touches me to think, though, because, being a dad now, understanding how you have become so strong and leaning on God and not become hateful. Like when you said that in your speech, like, oh, dude, I'm trying not to cry right now. I'm telling you right now. We gotta be manly, man, dude. No, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it right now. I won't stop. No, just for you to do it as a dad, and people just, like you just said, like the daily grind. You're a dad, you're a husband, you are working in some capacity. For you, did you already have your business at that point? No, I transitioned out of a business into a business that wasn't working for me, and then into a new business right after all of this happened. And so I built the business I'm currently in from the ground up with some people I love who really, people don't understand, when you build a business, it's not just one, it's many people, and you work hard and you grind and you grow. And so we started over and we built a business, and I had people I trusted, who I love, who I worked hard with. And just like the rest of the stuff we're talking about, some of the relationships work, some didn't. You move in and out of things. You do your best. You just do your best to try to be good and be honest and have integrity. And all of that stuff would be a story to tell, like to get on a podcast and tell all by itself. Yeah, right. But that's not the story really, because for you, while all of that's going on, you're trying to move through life. I'm trying to, just what you talked about. Your three littles, they have no idea what it, nor do you want them to have to feel the burden of that, feel any of this burden. So it's like you said, you have to like find this balance where you learn to work through this stuff for yourself, the painful days, the hard days, all without putting it into their lives, as minimally putting it into their lives as you can, because you also don't want to discount it in case they ever need it. Right. In case it is affecting them. But luckily for both of us, my kids, when this happened, were pretty young. So it doesn't, they didn't know your mom. No. They didn't really they knew her, they had spent but they're little. So it's not like they have these core memories that are just super strong, except for Braxton. Yeah, for Braxton. He's the one who was old enough that I think there's some of that there. And of course. And the other thing people don't know is him and JJ were dude, best friends. It kills me. Best friends. But he's amazing. He's an amazing young man right now. And I don't really want to focus. I don't even want the world that I don't want to talk about my kids, not because I don't love them, but because
you're protecting them.
I don't want this. I don't want people to. I want them to be just protected, right? And that's what we do. So as men, we try to get into this space where we need to provide. We know the things we need to do, and we try to do them. And then I think we just step up to the plate and say, hey, I have to figure it out, and I'm going to try to do this healing process as privately as possible, so they're not seeing it.
And it's hard, and that's exactly what you just said, and that's what I was getting to. Is like you have your whole life, all your roles that you're playing. You're trying to show up on an empty tank a lot of times, and for me, it was that same way. And I remember thinking to myself, "There's no way I can start a new job without all of this." I mean, how do everybody I get to meet, all my friends, it's like eventually they know that your entire family is gone. And, it's like, how do you process that? How can anybody palate that? It was the same thing for therapy. I was like, how am I supposed to get a therapist and just unload this and just be like, hey, bro, everyone's gone. It's just me left. And it's like, here's it is. So
I don't know how to handle it. I don't know what to. And then you don't want to, then you're like, do I trust that person? Because I have trust issues because
trust issues forever.
All these people I'm supposed to be able to trust, I can't trust.
That's my point. So it was a process of the growth was probably the most excruciating thing. It's almost like shedding a skin or something. Like it's so drastically different from how I knew you before to where I am now, because everything about that person that I was, I don't want to be dramatic, but it's like a part of me that was not working, that couldn't live, died. So like the part that won't work hard, won't show up, won't go through the storm, died. And it's like, it was
changed,
hard,
right? It transformed.
I felt the death though.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, I'm like a new birth, like freaking comic book.
Let's be real about it. It's not like, in the comic book or in the sci-fi, in our nerdy, we're both huge nerds.
Yeah, we both.
I read nerd books all the time. Like, I nerd out. My wife thinks it's hilarious. But anyways, yes, we're like, all that stuff. We're super into it. Like, we love that kind of stuff. And the thing that people don't understand is in those books, it's just like this cool, like, moment. They make it sound cool. They make it seem not that big a deal. But when you actually go through that in real life, it's just pain. There's a lot of pain.
And you're just dying.
There's no other word to describe it, right? It's like this pain that you have to go through to get to the other side of it, to become that better version of yourself.
You know what? I used an example of this, and this is something that I have been working on a project with, but it's to me, it's like a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's so drastic. And like between a caterpillar becoming a butterfly is being in a dark, secluded cocoon by yourself, wrestling around till you finally break out of it. That's what it felt like. That's what life has been like. And it's like, you have to understand how much of that time in the cocoon it felt like that this was to get to this point. And like, I always appreciate people have even seen on the channel, they're like, I see the growth, I see that you've grown. And it's like the same thing for you. Like, I've seen you change drastically, but for the good. And it's like, that's the hard part too, is people don't understand there's two paths. And I made a video about it too. There's two paths. Lori, all those guys, they kept going. When you get to that fork in the road in life, they kept going the wrong way. They kept going the wrong way. So it's hard to choose.
If there's a God and he's good and he loves us, that means there has to be another path.
There is.
That has a being or whatever, however you want to describe it. I try to leave things open because I want everyone to have their chance to believe in what they believe.
Figure it out for themselves.
I believe your journey with God is personal. And I support everyone with where they find it, as long as they're not doing something that's so bad that we as a society need to protect other people. Right. Like I support this idea that there can be freedom of choice,
of belief. And that's big of you to say that, to know.
I love all the other Christian denominations. I love people who are Muslim. I love people who are Jewish. Like if you found God somewhere, and you found a lifestyle that's improving you, like I'd say I'd encourage it. Like if it's between you and him, it's not between my interpretation of it is for me. It's like, that's the beauty of where we live and what we have. And so wherever we're at, like that's what's there. And that reminds me of something that did bug me that has come up a lot. There's a lot of accusations about me being gay. And I hate how the word I think of is homophobic, how homophobic that some of that stuff is. Because there's nothing wrong with being attracted to the same gender. Like as we've seen, it's a normal thing. It happens all the time. And for someone to be devalued or debased or like like something that bugged me is, and that I want people to know is like, I love you however you are.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And it's none of my business who you're attracted to. If you found joy and happiness, I'm excited for you. And I want you to, like, it's not my job or my position to tell you how to feel or what those things should be. The only part that was hard for me in that process was that I knew that I didn't have those feelings, and it was so bizarre for somebody to be telling me
to accuse you
that God told them that I did.
Right.
Because that was the part that was really hard to understand. Was like, I know I'm not. And
what God are you talking to?
Yeah, right. Like it was very scary. It was very worrisome. It had a lot of all the feelings you can imagine. And so when I think about that, like wherever you're at in your life, however you love, however you feel God or work through God or have him in your life, like the thing I would encourage people is to make a relationship with him. Make a relationship so that when you get to those places that you were just talking about where you have to go one way or another, my message would be have that relationship so you can go the right way, so you can make the world better. Because for me, the purpose of life is men are that they might have joy. And joy is not happiness. Happiness can happen at Disneyland. It can happen at Six Flags. It can happen when your mom sends you a bunch of money. You can feel happy from that.
From a moment.
And that's a moment, but it's fleeting. And joy, what I would hope people can find, lasts. It's not always just happiness. You can feel some of that happiness, but joy is something that lasts. And the places I've found it are in that relationship with God, in my family unit. Like, you heard me talk about my grandfather. I love that man. He got joy. He created joy in my life. He taught me to fish. He took me on his boat. He took me to Utah Jazz games. It made me a big fan of Utah Jazz. He showed up. He showed up in my life when it was good, when it was bad. And he was someone for me as a teenager when I was sowing my wild oats and figuring life out, who was there for me. And he told me he loved me, but he held me accountable. And he said, "I'm disappointed in you." He told me that. I'll never forget that conversation with my grandfather, because he reminded me that I had more value.
Right.
And he reminded me, and he said, "I'm disappointed in you. I know you're better than this."
Yes.
And there's no more powerful thing than someone who you love, who's shown you that they love you regardless, and they've shown you through multiple ways, and not just giving you money, but and they're investing their time and showing you the different ways you can feel loved.
Right.
There's no better thing than having that person come to you and then help you understand that you have a bigger calling in life than to just take from everyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
That they're and to teach you that that's where real joy comes from.
Right.
So for me, that's something else I would distinguish, Colby, is that there is a huge difference between joy and happiness, and that the path I see you on is that one. I see you finding and growing joy, and you're recognizing what that takes. And it's all the stuff that we're sitting here and we're talking about.
And that's the thing too. It's like trying to find joy. For like what I've had to do is look at life from an optimistic place and just be like grateful for everything. And the hard process I went through last year was just, I really started dealing with in therapy is like what I didn't have growing up, how I didn't have that, like what you just said. Like I didn't really have someone that loved me enough to be like, hey, this is it. You know what I mean? Like at least really close to me in that way. And it wasn't like I had my parents do that for me either. And so I've always felt really alone. Like just honestly, always felt really alone. It just felt like that's the normal. Makes my heart, dude. Just know that. And then it taught me a lot though. And then I had to work through, am I better off just alone always? Like, is my kids better off? And like, that's where all of those battles go. Like, am I, you struggle and you have all these, what you just said, like, it's hard for me to admit, but like all that, for you to know inherently that you had worth, I did not have that. I had the exact opposite. And that led down a lot of the wrong places for me, constantly feeling like I'm never enough. I'll never be good enough. I'll never be enough for this person. I have to perform. And I did that my whole life. That people pleaser, that person who would, I think I just developed being funny just out of that place. Like maybe I can at least add value to people's day if I'm funny.
Dude, you were always funny. Just so you know. Regardless of what anybody tells you, you gave some great jokes. I think of that. You remember this, like when you were like 1 chip challenge, but you like did this like gigantic that we had gotten this chip at like
Oh yes,
and it was
at
like
the
yeah,
restaurant.
it was like
I
like
ate,
a million chips.
dude. It was it was at like Applebee's or something like
and
that.
you shoved that
And
whole thing in
dude,
your
that
mouth.
whole day I couldn't breathe.
You
I couldn't breathe, and it was just like
we were all dying
Yeah.
laughing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that
you
was-
were always, dude. You
Yeah.
always had like these little, like these little witty moments where like, but I love what you're saying, and I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you're
because-
good. I
Because
love
you're
that.
you're spot on. Like that's just a fun part of who you are, but your
Yeah.
worth doesn't tie to that.
Yeah, and I didn't know that until I was an adult, and and I still obviously like I still learning a lot. But
We always struggle, even with core principles that we believe and think
Right.
we know.
But when you have your kids and you know that you love them, there's nothing they could do to change that or their value. Like just because you threw a wet diaper at the wall, that doesn't change the fact that I love you the exact same and that you still matter the same to me. So it's like that's what's taught me is like a perfect example of like I think how God's taught me a lot is like from my kids. Like this is him goes, there's little moments where he's like, that's how I feel about you. And I'd be like, tears, done.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you do love me. Cause I don't know what a parent's love feels like.
Yeah.
And it's that
It's
inherent
beautiful.
love. You
It's
know what I mean?
beautiful.
But so he taught me by being a parent and saying little things while I'm feeling them for Riley.
Yeah.
When she's little, while I'm feeling it for Ava and now Carter. And so I guess like the biggest point is like everything you and I've talked about too in that way is like growing up in that way. I didn't have that,
Mhm.
but now there was like an accelerated process of like the last 5 years. And I would say honestly, the last like year and a half of just like from here to a completely different place. And I think first, I always know that God did that and helped me through it. But two, I finally learned that exactly what we talked about earlier, like my responsibility in things. I can't just send a prayer up and then just sit there and wait, right? It's like, please, make my crops grow.
Yeah.
That's not going to do anything. Like it's magic bean style, right?
I mean, there's probably people out there
No, I
that say that, and then
yeah.
like the whatever. Sometimes
Right.
like
that happens.
there
Yeah.
are statistical anomalies everywhere.
Right.
But
God does do miracles, but
Yeah.
that what it isn't is exactly what I never learned was it's please help me get these crops ready. And I'm in the field and I'm working them and I'm doing it. And he's helping by giving me the strength and blessing
Yeah.
the work and blessing me to come home with something. So it's the same idea though in my emotional life that I had to learn is I'm not going to expect you to just change me.
Yes.
I want you to help me change with the process, help me be strong enough to be able to do it every day.
And we have to also acknowledge sometimes his plan isn't a plan, right? Like, I think of like one of my favorite Bible stories is Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego.
Yeah.
When they said, "But if not,"
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing to remember too.
Yeah, I
when
love
you're
that.
thinking about God as like, yes, I wanted my family saved, and I was giving. I remember in the early stages of like going through my painful process for me, losing my family. I remember I kept telling him, "This is what I want." I kept giving him what I wanted, telling him, "This, I want my family saved. I want my family saved."
Yeah, save my family. Who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, and that was the miracle I expected because I was living my life the way I was supposed to. I was keeping every covenant, every promise I'd made to them. I was keeping it. I was diligent in my serving of my wife who wanted a divorce. I just kept going. I was like, I'm gonna. That was my intent, right? But just like those three who went into when they were challenged and you said, "Will your God save you?" They said, "We believe He has the power to save us, but if not, we'll follow Him anyways."
Yeah.
We would not follow another God, right?
Yeah.
God expects of us to go put that work in, even without. Maybe His plan isn't to grow the crops,
Right.
But the thing that I have learned, because it wasn't His plan for me to save that family that I had, is that He's, when you continue to just trust Him, His vision is better than anything you can imagine. You know, here we are, we're reconnected. Our trust is back to a great level. I feel your love. I feel the change.
Yeah.
And I wanted that with you, just like I wanted my family, just like,
Of course.
but guess what? God gave me a new, different looking family.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful and I love it. And He knew my heart. He knew what I wanted. I kept my promises and He's given me more than I could imagine. Right. And I'm growing in that. And yeah, there's tons from the outside looking in. That sounds like a great story, but what we just talked about, there's all this pain that goes into it too, while you're going through that.
Yeah.
And I see that same thing. Like, I think we both wanted a relationship together, but like when you found God and you started that plan and I found God my way, eventually it did come. It just came in a different way than we expected.
Exactly.
And I hope people also understand that, like, look, we weren't always close through this.
No.
There was a period where I didn't even have your cell phone number.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even talk to you, right? While you were figuring things out. And we left each other space.
Yeah.
I recognized that it wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
And so we loved each other from a distance in our own way we could, right? And you probably were trying to figure out, can I trust him? Can I trust anyone? You know, like
that's 100% right there.
Yeah. Like, while you're going through all of that, trying to live every single day, like sometimes that's too much and you can't tackle it. And so, but look at the beauty of his process, you know, like here we are years down the road in a space where we can have those relationships. And that comes from what you just talked about, building it. You had to build it. Nobody could build it for you. I had to build it. And that's probably one of the best messages when we're talking about a podcast for people to help them learn to heal. Is like, you have to build it. Like the healing process is one where you have to build it. Like it's the refiner's fire. You're going in and he's making steel out of you. But to make steel out of you, they make steel by pounding a heavy hammer on you over and over again. And we're using a lot of those, you know, Christ always taught with those parables.
Because the parables. People understand them.
It's good to give some other context to help us to try to give. It's hard to give words to some of these processes that you go through, right?
And that's the thing, like you said, back to like the trust thing too. Like you said earlier, I was at one point where I was like, after hearing more details, and like I said, I didn't watch the trials and stuff, but just hearing some of the details and things, I was like, there's nobody on the planet Earth that I think I could trust anymore. And it's like the hardest part, I think, honestly, was, hold on a second. I feel like for me, go on.
Yeah. Let's eat a little.
I like having something in there.
This is impromptu.
I know, I love it. And this is the thing, I don't care if we eat it on here. But my thing is this. There was a point where I was like, I have to do, well, okay, let me go back a little bit.
Yeah.
You remember how it kind of felt like there was sides when everything broke. And like for me personally, I didn't side with my mom, but I didn't know where to go, because then I thought, especially after with Charles, I thought everybody was going to look at me like that's her son that loved her. They were close. Like it was almost like it felt impossible. So I just kept slowly going further away from everybody. Yeah. And then at some point, everybody's like, okay, let's like, and again, this happened with Netflix. I'll just be honest with it. Like I came as vulnerable as this and said, this is what I want to do. I want to honor my family. I want to tell the story of my family. You need to spend time on my faith. Gone. Nothing. So the trust was coming. All the trust that I gave in any capacity was being ruined. And that wasn't reflected on you. That was just life. There was that point where it's like, hermit crab, I can't. There's nobody in my own family's this way. Like I never knew if I'd have friends again. I never thought about having any type of life outside of just me waking up, going to work, and providing for my family, and never talking about it.
I'm sure it was even hard just with you and Kelsey, dude. Like I can't imagine how hard that was for you guys. Like she's got to try to figure out how to love you in this capacity, and you've got to try to figure out how to love her. Right. You know, doesn't make it easier to be a good spouse. No, when you're going through all that.
How do you deal with that? And we're two kids. Yeah. We're just two kids. And like I think about it too all the time. Now I think about my kids, I'm like, man, 22, 23, you're just a baby, bro. Like you're just a baby. And like you're just barely getting out of that space where you're just trying to figure it out. And you know, that's what I think though, is like, this is why I came up with this maybe a couple months ago, but it feels like I might have to crawl on glass so my kids can walk in meadows. And it's like, I'll do the hard work here so the generational cycles won't continue. You know what I mean?
And they might have to crawl on their own glass.
Right, exactly. Everybody does.
And the beauty of having done it is you can have empathy with them, and they can have someone to look at. They can have what you didn't. Exactly. They can have someone they can look at, Colby, that they can see that they made it through, that it's possible. Right. And even though it's painful and hard, they can get to the other side of that so that they can walk through meadows. Exactly. And hopefully their kids can. But if not, they can trust God to know that he'll help them through it, and they can get there. And it's like what you said with your grandpa, with your parents. You just need to know that somebody is with you, but they're not going to pull you out of it. So it's like, hey, you're struggling. I'm still here,
but I can't do it for you. You have to do it.
Yeah.
And if you mess up, I tell you messed up. That's the type of thing. It changes your life because it's
Yes.
a non-judgmental type of love. And I think that's how God loves us. God loves us. And I used to have way more of a judgment day God idea. Like, I will be honest, I was not being a very faithful teenager, okay, to the church.
Yeah, honestly,
yeah.
most let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Most teenagers are
No.
not.
I was not.
Yeah. It's so rare you're going to have like that teenager who can just trust God right from the start. I mean, part of growing is not being faithful.
So I was
testing the waters,
I
seeing
was
what's
doing
up.
my thing, right? So I knew I was doing the wrong things. So I had more of a judgmental idea of God. That's how I grew up with it. Like, I just thought,
A lot of people still do.
that I'll step into church and fire, lightning, that idea.
Yeah.
And then like, you are always like disappointing God. And like, same thing with my mission. Went on my mission, couldn't handle it. Felt like I'm literally about to. I was at one point, dude. I had my bags packed. I was like, I'm gonna start walking down the Idaho Road. I was in Nampa. And I'm like, I don't know where I'm at. I'm gonna start walking with my.
I'm leaving.
I'm leaving. I'm out.
Yeah.
I can't handle the pressure of doing this, and I felt so imperfect. And so I felt unworthy. Number one. That was number one.
Idaho missionaries, bro. I served in Idaho.
How crazy is that? How crazy is that? So yeah, I was only there for a couple weeks, but
and I served in Washington too. But
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
I had both.
that's whole good. And
You're only there for a couple weeks, but
I was there for 2 or 3 weeks. It was a long one.
you know what?
Yeah.
You gave what you had at that time.
That's what I had, and that was the thing. I was not prepared. I tried to prepare. It wasn't. That was the thing that was so hard for me, and I think that started my own decline with God, which also saved me later on. Because at that point, when I came home, I was like, I am never going to marry the right wife. I am never going to have the right job. I've screwed everything up. And so when I was there, I came back to Hawaii, and I was like, I'm not going to church because it's a tiny branch. There's like 30 people in there. They're going to be murmuring their booties
judgmental,
off.
right?
Yeah, I knew they're going to judge me. So I'm like,
Screw it, I'm not going.
yeah, I'm not going back. And I remember I took my tag off and I threw it. I was done. I was like, well, I'm probably hellbound. Like, it was that bad. So I was like, I remember just being in my room, like I was that decline, and I didn't have anybody to help me. Like, Lori was not helpful. Nobody knew how to. I don't think anybody knew how, and I'm not putting it on them.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that support, so I was alone.
You didn't even know who to talk to.
Right. Exactly. There's no. I couldn't open up and talk about it like I am right now to them without that judgment. And I think that those experiences, though, being so alone and a lot of that stuff, has served me better to be more and more and more understanding and empathetic of people.
That's the word that I love.
Yeah.
Empathy. Like your ability you're going to have as you grow this, as you go work hard at this, and to go find you're not alone in that.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not alone in that.
Right.
Maybe they didn't go on. Maybe they didn't go on a mission and feel that way, but maybe
Right.
they had something else that made them feel like God couldn't possibly love them.
Yeah.
Colby, and if there's something I can tell you that I believe in my core, it's that my favorite picture of the Savior is one with him sitting, looking over the city of Jerusalem, weeping because I think, like for me, that's got to be the most heartbreaking thing to love someone completely,
Right.
and to have them not love themselves enough or understand their worth,
Their value.
that they don't know how valuable they are, because every single person has value, and should be able to feel loved. And if your mission in doing this is that you can help the people who probably need it the most, get away from the people who are focused on the criminal and the act, because guess what, those eyeballs will come to all those stories anyways, because
100%.
it's interesting and people care about it. But if you can give those people a place where you can help them share their story, help them heal, and maybe you can make enough money that you can put together a nonprofit or something where you can actually like get them with help them understand some of that stuff. To me, that's as beautiful as anything gets. Like let's leave the world a little bit better instead of only focusing on the parts that are easy to focus on. Grab eyeballs, right?
Exactly.
I mean, the news always
it's always going to exist.
Its job will always be there, right?
Exactly.
And it's going to, and their job, because they have to make money, is to give you the shock value. Guess what? That'll happen. But if enough people, my hope for you is that there's enough people that also really are just I call them the silent majority. Like, I think there's a silent majority out there that wants to root for us to all win.
Yeah.
That wants to make sure more people know that they have value.
Yeah.
And if those people are out there and they can see what you're doing, I hope they support it so that you can grow something special.
Yeah.
They can, because money's not evil either.
No.
If you use it the right way, it can be used for so much good.
Exactly.
Right. And to seek to grow value in the world so that you have that money so you can do good is not a bad thing.
No, 100%. And I think there's a lot that you said that I want to touch on, but one of the things with this, like what you just said with money is not evil. Like, you and I inherently understand how much that statement actually is the opposite for what the situation is.
Yeah.
So for us to both feel that way though about money and understand it is like, I've told people on here, you don't know many times how much of a grifter I've been called, like every name in the book. Like, all I want to do is make money off of this situation is what everybody thinks. And it's like, exactly what you just said is my exact heart. And I've tried to put it out there for people to understand, because if I wanted to sell my soul to tell the Lori stories and do all this stuff and I've had the offers. It's just
They're out there. Yeah, they're out there.
You know that?
Yeah.
So it's like, if that was my goal, I would be swimming in Lori money and whatever you want to call it, right? That's not the point though. That's never going to be the goal in life. Is this type of conversation is to the T what I have envisioned and dreamed for this channel to have, is just a reality-based understanding that there's something we both went through that we have a perspective on that almost no one else has. Very few people in our family would have it. And here we are talking about this stuff openly and talking about being a dad through it, talking about being a husband through it. Like, the heartbreak that you suffered, I'll never understand. I didn't go through what you went through. I've said that when I've talked about you on the channel, just in that way. I've been very respectful. I don't ever talk for you. I always say that. Yeah. But I just say, from my perspective of how Brandon feels, I've never been through what he went through. So I can't understand and relate. But this is how I feel about some of the things he's probably experienced. But I bring that up to say that you've been so brave to talk about it. Your statement was, I just don't think you understand how impactful that was. Like, to show love and grace in this situation, it's just the anomaly. Like, there's so many times, and I've seen it even before I ever knew case stuff. You go on TikTok and there's, people jumping over the pew to kill the person that killed their family member, or tried to hurt them, and venom spewing at them and trying to make them feel the pain that they caused and hating them. And there's one guy I saw who stood up and gave an impact statement where he said that he never wanted harm to come to that person. And that's just the road that you took. And like, your love for Jesus, like, and the way you're talking in that statement is everything that you could ever want to exempt. Like, you said exactly about, like, my heart just felt what you said so much, because it's like you said it in words. You brought it to life. You showed the love, the grace, the understanding, and you have every reason, earthly wise, to be angry and hate.
So do you.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like,
they took everything
that way,
right?
Everything.
I mean, they tried to take my life, which was really hard to get present to.
Yeah.
But I'm so lucky. God protected my kids. Yeah. Protected me. I mean, yeah, I'm devastated that that so many people I love aren't here.
Yeah.
But then I get out of my shoes and I get to your shoes, Colby, and it's just like, oh man, I grew up with this amazing family. I couldn't imagine if part of life was the trial he had for me was to go through what you went through.
No.
And to hear you where you're at now should give hope to anybody who's gone through a really, really, really difficult thing. Like, you have value, you're loved, that love has nothing to do with any decision you make here.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I see it in you. I can feel it in you. Like, that has immeasurable worth. I don't know that there's something more valuable that you could get.
Right.
Like, and you're going to be able to learn love languages and learn how to teach that to your children so that they'll grow up with that right from the start. Right.
Yeah.
And how much better the world becomes from that. You brought up a good point. Like, it's a complicated thing. I was asked, have you forgiven Lori?
Yeah.
And I shared my honest truth, which is like,
right.
I'm working. I'm trying to. Like, it's not depends on the day. Some days, you know, like some
Exactly.
days you wake up, and I know you know this, but like
Yes.
you just feel like the anger comes in, and like I said, sometimes the best thing you can do is let it have some space
Yeah.
and let it go through you and let it come out and let it move
Yes.
on. And other times, you know, the right thing is to oppress it and stop it. But like those feelings are going to happen until they stop happening, which I don't know if that ever happens. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm only present to what I have right
Yeah.
now in my life. But um, on the other side of it, as you pointed out, like nothing I'm going to do to hurt her or to do something to her is going to make me feel any better.
Exactly. It's not gonna
And
change.
it's not going to make you feel any better. Now, yes, I have so much gratitude. We have a system where people take on the accountability of
Yeah.
making sure people who can't be trusted anymore
Yeah.
can't hurt people anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Except for maybe other people who've hurt people where
Right.
they, you know, like within reach, like that to me, I'm so grateful. We live in a beautiful place where we have those
Yeah.
opportunities, and it doesn't always work, but it works.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, and
Yeah.
that's better than most places.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. And so like I look at that and I think I don't, there's no joy in life in trying and spending all that time in the pain instead.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, let's spread the message of
Yeah.
our Savior can heal. We can go through this process, and that's what we found. I mean,
Right.
there may be other ways to heal, and I don't want to stop anybody from finding a way to heal, to
Yeah.
get better, and to move forward.
Right.
But those are things that we found that worked for us, and I think it's why we connect well on some of this.
Yeah.
Let's spread that message. Let's
Yeah,
focus on
exactly.
that instead. Like, yeah, is it controversial? Yeah, I mean, like there's some great controversial things that we can talk about
Right.
what happened, and we can
Of course.
discuss those things, and that's okay. Then that's
Yeah.
fine. But like that, I like that that's your message. I like that
Yeah.
your message is that, and that's where we connected.
Yeah, and that's what I don't think you understand. Probably is just because when you shared your heart, my heart. Not to be too soft here, okay, but it's just true. Like my heart just felt everything you said because you and I think very similarly in that way, and that's what's so beautiful. Because I'm not going to speak or talk about anybody else, but others, people, family, and friends hold that resentment and will never forgive and choose not to. And that's the thing. What you said is so pivotal. I get this question all the time. I made a video years ago when I actually forgave my mom, and I told her I did. And
Or you started that process.
Yes,
right?
I started the process.
It
It's
is
a
right.
process.
There's some days where you maybe
No.
don't so much,
And then I'm like, oh, frick you, right? It's
Yeah.
like it gets to that point. So, and like we talked about, the whole idea of the scar wars is those wounds, and then there's a reopening, and then you feel it and you bleed out of the same place that someone's already hurt you, and they do it over and over, and the things that they say, and you have to say at the end of all of it, I'm still going to go back and choose. And you said about it's like drinking poison.
Yeah.
That's all it is. You as a person not forgiving only continues to hurt you more and more and more. So it's not that you don't, and I love how honest and raw that statement is. And I wanted to spend more time there so people understand, because I get the same question. You are not just, and you don't just say, I forgive you, and everything just melts and you feel butterflies and you effing float into the air. Like no one does that. Not in a situation like
maybe
this.
when you're 4.
Yeah,
6 or
exactly.
something,
Like,
you know?
oh yeah, I'm sorry.
And when you
I hit
were both angry at each other
Right.
because you were playing a game and something,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You have
then
that.
you can. Then you can
Right,
do that.
then you can
and,
let
and
it
that works that way.
Right. But in something this deep, this pre-planned, this hurtful, and to, like you said, to go from a safe place to the absolute war zone that this became, and all the things that change and can easily take you down that enemy. And I see that a lot. I see a lot of people, the trendy thing is like villain arc, like I've been, hurt or this and that. So like just embrace that and just become this monster of a human being to deal with and cope with it. And really it's just all things come down to, we can go back to Lori in this one part, is to say she must have been really hurt and never dealt with it, and look where it got her. So you and I choosing the different path changes that trajectory of our lives to not choose that path that could lead to who knows what if you never let it go or heal ever.
You nailed it. And to anybody watching this, I think that's that's such a powerful statement to make sure they hear what he said there. Like if you choose to not try to heal, if you choose to not do that, like it festers. It doesn't.
Something's going to happen.
And you know, it can really take you down a path that you don't think you'll go over time. Like
Right.
when you think about look, these are people we loved, man. Like
Right.
we felt very safe around them for years. And that's the other thing. Like it's so easy to watch a story like this
and just bust through that part.
And just it's easy for someone who didn't know
right
all the years of trying to figure out like this, there's a reason that in my mind in October after I was shot at that I didn't immediately just think I need to get those kids.
Yeah,
it was too late. It didn't matter. But
right.
like
thought that
because even though I knew that they'd made those decisions, I still couldn't fathom in my mind after all those years
that would happen.
That she could have gotten to the space she got to,
100%,
or any of the other people involved. Like a lot of people, like several people were colluding and doing this together, and they all got there because of what you just talked about. So there's stuff that they're carrying that I don't know where it started. I can't say.
Right.
But they mixed a lot of the bad poisons that slowly got into their lives. It's
a slow process too.
It is. Yeah. And all of these things are slow, and they're happening to me and you today still, and other things, right? Like, I also don't want anyone to think that I'm very aware that I'm far from perfect, and those poisons can get me at any time.
Me too.
And they come back in. They come back a year from now. I could look like that's the thing that sucks about people knowing who you are. And you meet someone randomly and they Google your name, and they can see,
they can see everything.
All this personal information that it's a really hard thing to go. It's all just out there on the internet now. People can find that out. And so you know that like you could fall back into it. Like and living this way, it's a process. Like we could fall into those same traps that they fell into. Anyone can. That's the thing. I think the other thing that's a good message, and I'm grateful you brought it up, is like anyone can be like that if they keep making. Hopefully no one ever goes to that extreme, but the way you get to those extremes, the way you get to these things it's also not just like you wake up and you don't say a prayer and then you murder someone. It's a long series of life choices of leaving poisons in, letting them grow in you, letting them justify other decisions that you shouldn't make, until you finally get to the place where you're making such horrible decisions that our minds can't possibly fathom that someone would make it. Right.
And you said two really key things. You said, I really tried to hit on this with a video. I made a video about, because I'm a nerd, I made it about Vader, I made it about Dexter, and I made it about Lori. They were all, it's called What Creates a Villain. And I made a video that explained to people that, like, when you watch those arcs, that in the movie or the show and in real life, there's a path that everyone gets to, like they've said, daily decisions. And the more you go, let's just call it the left or whatever, the more you go left and then get to the next one, you keep going down the wrong side. Like you said, it's number one, it's a slow process. It's not like they just woke up, like you said, and said, I'm going to murder somebody. It's slowly built to that point. I don't know how we ever get there. We'll never understand that. But like you said, it's a slow process of poison and hurt and pain and more things getting mixed into it, right? And another big thing is like, it's hard to go from the place we were with the family where it felt safe with people, and then all of a sudden it's so opposite. And it's like, people will never understand that we couldn't have ever, like, no matter what happened. And people usually, what happens is they get the whole pie and they go, how did you not know that, Brandon or Colby? You didn't see that coming? I'm like, it's in front of you. This is the whole puzzle.
They come in and they see a documentary where they put it all together for them, and they're like, how did you know?
That's like,
yes.
Walk in my shoes for a
minute.
minute.
Yes, I can see it from your perspective.
Right.
But now imagine living your life with someone you trusted for 10 years and who's just slowly changing, and guess what? You don't notice it because it's so gradual.
Exactly.
And
it's
then,
not just
all of a sudden, and yes, now you can look back and you can see all the things.
Yes.
And yes, it's nice that someone can go and have this ability with hindsight to go like show everyone else what happened.
It makes sense.
Right. And that's their job. Their job is to help logic it through. So they do a good job of studying a lot of information and giving you the stuff, just like a prosecutor's job was to show the crime the perfect way.
Right.
Yeah. When you see it that way, that means they did a great job at their job, but that's the whole point of this conversation is that's not how real life is.
Exactly.
This is real life. This what we're talking about is how it really happens, and it happens slowly, gradually, and you don't see it. Of course, you don't see it coming. Way less people would get murdered if we all saw it coming.
That's
you know?
my, and that's the thing that's
Way
so
less violent
frustrating.
crime, right?
That's-
Like,
yeah.
yeah, like in real life, that like we're distracted by other things. There's all this other stuff
We're
going
not
on.
paying attention. What people don't understand is that you and I were not watching every move Lori made or anybody else. You're not in that
That's
place.
called being obsessed.
That's my point.
Yeah.
We're both living our lives on the day. You're not watching Lori go to the temple. Like, and that's the thing. I think people get it so mixed up from watching so much content.
Yeah.
They know the story now inside and out. That's not what it's like in reality. Before it happened, before anybody was murdered, before anybody was attempted to be murdered, that didn't even cross your mind that your family that you've known for you 10 years, me my whole life,
Yeah.
would turn on your own blood and love people you love and start killing them for some money and other reasons. That's just not ever going to cross your brain.
And when they're doing weird things, you're just thinking, man, that sucks. They're doing weird things, but you love them.
You love them.
So,
exactly.
so what do you do? You do exactly what we
Yeah.
talked about. You try to forgive them. You try to like help them through it. You try to like take care of what you're supposed to first,
Yeah.
and then with your free time. And so yeah, like, did we see some weird stuff going on? Yeah. Did it make you think they were doing some weird stuff? Sure, but
Right.
like, but without the context of everything else,
Right.
all you were thinking was, man, this is kind of weird. And then when it got too bizarre,
Right.
we all got forced to pick sides and we got
Right.
pushed apart.
Right.
And they try to make you feel like you're all alone.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing that happened with this group is they
Right.
tried to make everyone feel like they were all alone and
Yeah.
push us all apart and control the narrative, control what can be shared.
Right.
It's really hard. It's really hard to know what to do, to know what's right when you have all that manipulation going on.
You touched on something really important. I want to, at least from, I think, a similar perspective you and I have. You and I also, though, give people the room to believe things. So even if I don't agree with you, right? Like I had 1 or 2 times when my mom pitched something and she said she saw Jesus,
Yeah.
which who am I to say you didn't at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
right?
trying to, yeah.
What am I supposed to say? You did
I
not.
had this exact conversation
Exactly.
as well, not with your mom, but
Right.
with
Yes.
Melanie. So
Yeah.
I know.
No, you can't. You're not going to say
About your mom.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You're not going to say no. You did not. There's no way that happened. Even if you think that, I still give people the room. Who am I to say you did not?
Yeah.
That's how I felt in that time. So it's like, I'm not going to try to tell you don't know what you're doing. So even when she tried to say, the only other thing she ever pitched me was she tried to explain that there's multiple lives. And I kid you not, she goes, well, like, you know, this, she didn't even go into detail. She just said something about coming back. And I was like, that's called reincarnation. That doesn't happen. That was my own personal belief. And I just said, that doesn't happen. You don't come back multiple times. When you die, you go to heaven. There's a very clear process of how God set that up. Jesus couldn't have died for you to come back 55 times.
Yeah.
Like that, but I was
Well
only
said.
time.
Well
No,
said.
that was, it's simple. It's not a complicated thing. So that's reincarnation.
For us, right?
Yeah. And she
we
knew
don't,
that.
if somebody else wants to believe in reincarnation,
Exactly. That's
okay,
that's their belief system. I just said, for me personally, for me, reading my Bible, is for me how I interpret it.
man.
So
yeah, and the Jesus thing, what I shared when I heard that was simple. I just said, look, I have met some people who I admire.
Yeah.
And I've read about some people who I admire, who are phenomenal, who have really showed me what a Christ-like person might look like, trying to live like him.
Yeah.
And none of them have ever shared that they saw him.
No.
So in my mind, if you had that sacred of an experience, if you had that amazing of an opportunity, it seems to me that you would be incredibly careful who you shared it
Yes,
with. You know,
100%.
That's just my 2 cents. Like,
Right.
but I'm not the one who gets. Only you and him know if that happened. So that's, you know, if you want to share it with people or not, like, all I'm going to tell you is I have a hard time believing it.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like that, and that was my perspective, right? Like,
and you're allowed to feel that way because you're being told by someone else that someone's seen Jesus, and that, again, we both had the same thought. I thought, okay, that's very, very, very intimate. That's one of the most intimate things that could ever happen is you've seen Jesus.
Yeah,
especially.
And at that time, you were going through I think back, like you weren't exactly in a place where you felt.
No,
all of those.
That was after my mission. And again, I met Kelsey, and she and I were not on the same page when it came to faith. So like we had to work through that, and I didn't know where I stood.
Good for her, by the way.
Yeah.
She kept strong on it.
Yeah. And so like we were not in the same place, and she and I worked through that whole thing. So that's a whole other layer of our marriage too, right? But you know, the reality is like it's hard for me because you and I tried to give the room to people. We loved them. We didn't know what they were doing. We had no idea how to plan it out. And it's just hard to see that. And again, I don't try to come on and fix every narrative. It would take me 5 to 5 years to sit here and stream
this
8
thing's
hours
probably,
a day.
I don't know if anybody's going to watch this, but
No,
we've been talking about
I don't care, dude. I'm telling you right now. And this is the thing, though. It's like the reason why it's such a big deal for us to talk, though, too, is because this is just, you and I understand it from very similar views, very similar place. And we were the ones that were around that family the most, along with a few other people, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, we're in the space that we are, and that's why we can have these conversations. My goal is always, whoever does want to watch it gets to understand maybe somewhat of like the misconceptions of that part, but also where our hearts are. And like, I was telling Kelsey, I've told people whenever I brought you up, I've just said, I don't ever talk about the private things. I'm never going to ever expose anything that is not explicitly okay for us to talk about together.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you and I grew up together at different ages, different times, went through a lot of very similar things. We went through things, I never went through the things you did, but I understand you in a very realistic way that you don't have to explain
that other
it.
people can't have because we
get it.
lost the exact same people who we loved.
Exactly. And it'll never
And they were
make sense.
different. They were different relationships for both of us,
Right.
but that doesn't change who they were.
Exactly. And I think that it's a hard thing because seeing us both, I mean, for me, seeing you in a headline, it's like you guys don't even know about who Brandon is and this and that. And so it's like really important for me because ever since we said we would sit down and talk, like I wanted people to be able to at least have a part of you that you are comfortable sharing, because I don't want that in the world to just be, like you said, Google. I want them to Google you and then it's just facts.
What they're going to find out in Google, most of it's probably true, but they're just facts about
a case,
a couple events that happened and the process of a case where people investigated and gave out information. And it is what it is, right? But the part that's hard and I actually don't really want the rest of the world to know.
Right.
It's not that I don't want them to know. It's that I don't really care to spend my time
explaining.
I'm the kind of person who doesn't. My wife has to make us take pictures when we're at family events and we're doing things because I like to just live and be present in the moment. That's my personality.
Yeah.
I enjoy being just in my relationships and because I feel great and I feel loved and I feel how I feel, I don't need to be something big and more.
Yeah.
It's just not something that's inside of me. And it's not that that's bad or good. It's just not.
It's not you.
It's not me.
Yeah.
And going through this process, it is something that I've learned about myself, right? Like I don't love being on camera. I'm doing this because I love you and I support you. And anybody who has a problem with that, they should go work on themselves.
Yeah.
That's my thought,
exactly.
Because there's nothing bad that you're doing. You're only, when I hear, people saying you're trying to make money off that, my thought is like, there's even if you were, there's nothing wrong with you trying to make money because you're going to use it to provide for your family.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything illegal. You're not doing anything bad. And so if it's not something they support, then don't watch.
That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel.
And if people want to watch your channel, I don't really want to go do a lot of interviews and do anything. I'm gonna I shared when I met with Justin, like I am writing a book and I'm working through that, and I don't know how long that takes, but that's for my kids because I recognize that there's this hole that's going to exist that I need to do a good job of writing. And if people are interested in me, it's a way for me to share I want that control to share how I want to saw it. Yeah. And so I want to do that. And and it's flattering if you're interested, and I don't want to insult anybody who's interested, and I'm grateful for their interest, but that's the way I'll do it to make sure that I can feel good about that way. And if it only ever sells one book to my mom, that's great. I'm fine with it. Like I've been blessed in life. I've had some great successes, and I've been able to provide for my family, which is all I need. For me.
Exactly.
And on the flip side, like I am passionate about like that you found a great idea, that you're working hard at it, and that like I can see that it'll put more good in the world. And if you get independently wealthy from it, I'll be nothing but happy for
Yeah.
you. And if Colby turns into a celebrity, we should all cheer him on. Good for you after all you've been through, you know? Like, great, dude.
Yeah.
And if not, if you have a little core thing and it can just provide for your family, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
You know, like that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
And you'll have me cheering you on all along the way. And I hope that there's hundreds of thousands or millions, or I don't know. I do have, I told you I don't even use YouTube, so I don't know how big your podcast is or any of this. But so people know I have a Facebook. I don't really get on it. I don't really use it. I don't have any social media apps on my phone from this. Like I used to do it a little teeny bit, but not a lot. And it's just not me. It's not my personality. Yeah, like so.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's just where I'm at. That's just who I am, and I'm comfortable with myself.
Yeah, and I love that. And that's the thing. Like I've explained to people before, my goal has always been like I am the least like monetary gain person. Like I've never grown up wanting to like I used to
I watched you grow up. You never cared about being I never heard you like everybody you can when they're younger they're more direct. You never were like, oh, I want to be rich.
No, never.
That wasn't what I always knew about you was you love sports, you love like there was a few things that you were in love with and passionate about. And my biggest concern was that you just didn't have anybody helping you fight through the hard part because I knew how real life worked, right? Like, nobody makes it to the NBA unless somebody just drives them to it, and helps them. And they have, the NBA is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about the 360 best basketball players on the planet.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So like 0.00001% of people who play a sport can make it to there. So
exactly.
So that's a whole, and then even then, sometimes you don't get the right window where someone sees you play that you get the chance to play. There could be somebody who's just as good as them, but never gets that shot.
I mean, how many people have those hoop dreams anyway, right? But my biggest reason I say that is because my goal in life was always to find something that God gifted me in that I love doing, and then the byproduct is whatever comes after that.
Yeah.
Like this to me has nothing to do with, oh, I really want to get Brandon here so I can make tons of money. That's just not what it is. This conversation is worth everything in itself to me.
And you can share with everybody that you didn't even ask me. We were talking, you came to lunch with me after, and I'm probably not going to do any more interviews for a long time.
Yeah.
I really don't enjoy them. I felt a real love to Justin Lum and to Nate Eden because they shared the story for us, and they gave us back some of that power by sharing the story. And so, I wanted to do that with Justin because he's a good reporter. He did his job, and I could tell he cared about the case. This was something that came up at lunch when I told you. I felt something that happens. I think when you build that relationship with God, He can prompt you. He can give you guidance. He can give you little gut feelings. And I had several of those during the process of this case, but I also had that like, and so I texted you and said, hey dude, I just want to make sure you know that like, if you want to, I want to do that for you. Well, at first I made sure that this was something you were really going after, right? Because I didn't want to waste your time or mine just to do it. But if I knew if you were going to do this, that I wanted to, I don't think I've ever even done a podcast before to get an idea. Like it's just not.
You're good at it. I'll tell you that right now. You're good at it.
It's not my personality, but but if it meant that it would help you, that was the communication. And you didn't go to me, and it was the other way around. I felt like I should tell you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this so real, and I feel vulnerable doing it with you, right? Like because we're talking about things that are really important to us and really matter.
Yeah.
And we're probably over talking, like I said earlier, and it's probably too much content, but whatever. I also don't have to worry about that. That's your job, right?
So I tell people this all the time, like the people leave their comments, other cases is like, there's nobody forcing you to be here. You click on the channel or the video.
Watch this, man.
You are watching me go like this. I can't. It's like click it, turn it off, zoom out, whatever you want to do. You don't have to.
Go find something else.
Exactly. That's my thing.
Play Star Wars on your phone.
There you go.
I'm sure there's a good Star Wars.
Fortnite's on your phone. Do it. Like my biggest thing is this: is like I told you, creating something for and again, I don't ever want to use the word victims as if that's who you are.
Yeah.
You're a victim to something, but you as a person are not a victim. That's not how I see you. But creating a safe space for people who have been through really hard stuff to have a place to sit down with someone who understands, at least might not know exactly where you're at, but understands that pain and can talk and relate and realize that we're human. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry. there's nothing that goes perfect. There's not going to be
There's no script.
There's no script.
Yeah.
I didn't write down a single question.
Neither of us has anything written down.
No,
Yeah.
we didn't think of, and I didn't have to think about it because I knew when we sat down that we were just going to let it fly. And that's all I've ever wanted is people. I think this is my take on media now. If you really look at how people are zooming away from, like, when I don't want to get in a controversial place here with people and the president, this and that. But what was interesting to me is when there was the presidential race, the presidential candidates and the vice presidents were going on podcasts, like really popular podcasts. And it's like, why would someone that high profile go see Theo Vaughn, who makes the jokes and all that stuff, and sit down and talk about this stuff? And it's because we're getting past that headline life, in my opinion, and people want to hear real human beings again. It's getting sick of that.
Media is changing, right?
It's changing.
Yeah,
yes.
It's changing, and that's scary, not scary, and all
scary
to all these conglomerate companies that have a lot of money and like to be able to control narratives.
Right.
And it's, but for a guy like you or me, the piece that I take away from it is that, like, as long as there's people out there, Colby, doing what you're trying to do right now, that are trying to do good things, that have a good mission, and then they stay true to their goal.
Yeah.
You can create some great content that hopefully someone stumbles across it that needs it, right? Hopefully somebody who's watching this needs what we're sharing. Yeah. And maybe it gets them on their knees to build a relationship with God. Maybe it gets them the belief inside of themselves that they have some worth. Maybe it gives, I don't know, but if that comes to just one person from what we're doing, then I don't care if it makes any money. Right. It was worth a couple hours of our time. Exactly. You know, and let's go spend the rest of it with our beautiful families and enjoy those, you know, and then my hope for you is that, yes, it does get enough eyeballs, that enough people, that somebody pays you, whoever it is you put, I don't know where you put it, YouTube or whatever, that pays you some money so that you can grow it and you can give it to more people. Yeah. Give more people the access that they need and do some of that stuff. And if there's ways I can be a support in that, I'm here. You know, I don't have unlimited time, but you already know, like I've got your back and you have my time and you have a huge fan, you know, like I'll be a big fan because you're as close to an extra son as I've got, right? Yeah. Like I'm not old enough to be your dad anyways, but like, as far as that is concerned, like that love, like you already said it, like sometimes there's love that is unconditional. There's not some, I have no need to get something from you to love you, because I'll always love you. Like, and I'm blessed to have had people who gave me that before so that I could share that and I see it in you now. Yeah. I see that you found it for yourself, and I see that you're giving that to your children and your family, and it's a process. Like you're going to make mistakes on that, but of course. I support you going and putting that in the world. Thank you. That's my message. And I feel the same way. And I think, you know, like I told you, the last thing I would ever want is to try to come to you to get something from you, exploit you, anything of that nature. It's just creating safety. And thank you for being that. You know that I don't have a lot of people like that in my life. It means a lot to me. And like, honestly, I'm glad we sat down for so many different reasons, but more than anything, it just shows that you and I were always really in the same place. We just didn't know how to communicate that. I know I didn't, because of all the trust issues. No, there's no guidebook. No, you have no idea how to deal with it. There's nothing you could ever do to prepare or know how to react to something like this. But yeah, I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for doing this. I know you don't want to do a lot of media, but I think this is one of those conversations that at least I think somebody will need. Yeah. So, and you know what? Like, dude, thanks for you made a space where we were safe and we could talk. And so thanks for creating that. And I hope that you can do that lots more times. Yeah. So, okay. Appreciate you. Love you, man. Bye, everybody. Thank you, guys.